Welcome to the Dark Ozarks. We are discussing the dark tales of Christmas in the Ozarks. Christmas as a merry time of feasts and gift giving is a relatively new tradition, and the very noir side of the holiday is often forgotten. But what is not festive about Christmas?
Well, traditionally, there was a lot more of the supernatural in the holidays, including ghosts and talking animals and much more, not to mention a lot of explosives and fireworks. Oh, and there are two separate days being celebrated as Christmas, at least back in the old times. And beware, there are a few folk horror tales as well.
We will get back to the dark side of Christmas, but first we want to invite you to like, follow, and subscribe to Dark Ozarks on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as your favorite podcast platform. We also invite you to become a Dark Ozarks subscriber on Facebook. On the Dark Ozarks Facebook page, click subscribe, have your login information ready, and join Dark Ozarks behind the scenes for only $4.99 per month.
Your $4.99 per month subscription allows you to come with us on paranormal investigations, deep dive research, and topics too controversial for public view. The next 100 subscribers will be entered in a drawing for a free Dark Ozarks t-shirt and an exclusive signed first run copy of the book Dark Ozarks: The Spooklight. Subscribe today to be entered in the drawing, and now you can also get Dark Ozarks t-shirts for sale at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com.
Thank you to State of the Ozarks online magazine, dedicated to preserving and celebrating Ozarks culture since 2007. Free access to hundreds of articles and find more information about State of the Ozarks events. Be sure to sign up for the State of the Ozarks Weekly, delivered free to your inbox every Sunday night, featuring new writings and a down-home Ozark recipe in every issue.
Mark your calendars for upcoming live events, and coming up on December 13th is Dark Ozarks Live at the Fox in Springfield, Missouri. Meet Dark Ozarks producers Lisa and Josh for evenings of history, legends, and the paranormal, and even visit some of the most haunted locations in the Ozarks. Details on the Dark Ozarks Facebook page, and visit paranormalsciencelab.com for tickets and more information.
We encourage you to check out Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, in person and online, on Facebook, and at the website alwaysbuyingbooks.com for all of your reading needs, including a large section on the paranormal, history, and more. Not to mention, the building is haunted. Tell Bob and Elise that we sent you.
We also want to thank Beard Engine Brewing Company in Alba, Missouri. Beard Engine Brewing is the only English-style brewery in Missouri and has been twice named Missouri's best brewery by the Missouri Brewers Association. Great beer and great food in a historical building with a noir past, and yes, their building is also haunted. Tell Nate and Tiff that we sent you.
So, dark side of the Christmas holidays in the Ozarks.
Rule number one, blow stuff up.
Yes, and rule number two, if it didn't get blown up the first time, try again.
Christmas, certainly Christmas in the 20th century is very different than Christmas, say, in the first half of the 19th century in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of English history, Christmas has long been uniquely regarded and sometimes deeply politicized, sometimes banned. In the case of the Puritans, it was banned completely,
Mm-hmm.
and then reinstated after after Cromwell. And certainly the British colonists who arrived in North America and created an Upper South culture had oftentimes a very different way of approaching Christmas. It was a lot rowdier. It was very raucous at times. It was less considered a holy holiday as it was a party holiday. And is certainly in the early days of settlement in Arkansas, and although we appear to have less documentation, quite likely in early settlement in Missouri and places like Potosi, there's a good chance that happened there too. That it was a wild and woolly night.
It really was. I mean, it was a celebration. It was, it was a celebration, let's face it, of making it through the year. And as you said, often at different times, Christmas has been uh, discouraged and even banned by the Puritans, etc. And even into the 20th century was not viewed as a regular holiday in a lot of places in the British Isles, and was not a holiday observed in all of the states in the United States until the 1890s. So it was viewed more as a throwback to pagan days, which would surprise a lot of people today.
It certainly could, and we can attribute a lot of the change actually to Charles Dickens with A Christmas Carol,
Yes.
as well as other factors, and certainly a late Victorian era push. I think a largely late Victorian era push to make Christmas more family friendly. I think it's funny that there was a point that it wasn't, and really center the holiday around children,
Mm-hmm.
and not around not around blowing stuff up, but or shooting each other, as was sometimes the case in early settlement Arkansas.
Yes. And by all accounts, sometimes even when someone got killed, it wasn't really, much of a deterrent to the rest of the partiers.
That and some of the and also I think in terms of the upper plateau, the interior highlands plateau, things did change and still do change more slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not a bad thing. I think that's oftentimes a very good thing, but you do see that in some of the realities and some of the dates. Christmas did not become a federal holiday until 1870. That is a interesting thing to take note. 1885, there was a Christmas morning fire in Gurdon, Arkansas, that, quote, started from sparks of fireworks, which destroyed one store and damaged another. In 1912, in Pine Bluff, groups of streetcar conductors waged a Roman candle battle outside a Main Street tavern. Quote, coats were spotted where the fiery balls stuck, and the battlers were forced to duck and dodge to prevent facial disfiguration. That'd be dangerous even today. I have just a lurking hunch that their Roman candles packed a bit more punch than ours do now. And regardless, that would be a little scary. And a further, this was actually, I believe, in Napoleon, Arkansas, south of Little Rock, on December 24th, 1837, noting that Robert Brownlee talks about people coming out of the woods and into town who were fighting and swearing and using the Bowie knife frequently. There was one man killed, but no one took notice of the fact, presumably at the time. So there was some wild things going on for Christmas in the early era of settlement, and extending into the 20th century, early 20th century in the Ozarks.
Very true. And uh, you mentioned before we started speculating where the concentration on explosives came from, and that it may harken back to the British Isles. I found that interesting.
I think that is certainly a good place to consider. Something that is often overlooked is that a great deal of Southern culture, Deep South culture, and Upper South culture has been and was informed by by British culture. And when you look at the patterns of the people groups, it makes sense. And it even manages to make its way sometimes without people realizing what it is that they're seeing. You take Gone for the Wind, for example, the plantation that we're all familiar with is Tara. Well,
Mhm.
Tara's in Ireland. It's a sacred site. And so we see those connections. We see the connections with the British Isles, and we also see connections with the British Isles that span a wide variety of social strata. So we certainly see aspects of aristocracy and gentility, and certainly there are plenty of places, remaining plantation homes in the South that strongly reflect connection with England. And at the same time, we see a really an interesting level of raucousness that is truly associated with uh, essentially poorer classes, mass migration Celts coming across and going from rough and woolly existence in the British Isles to a rough and woolly existence in the interior highlands, and that definitely includes the Ozarks.
Very, very true. And things were even a little more of the macabre or dark side that people wouldn't think about. Traditions, even incorporating hoodoo and voodoo.
It was, and I suspect in some ways still are. Vance Randolph makes note, not too far out of Hot Springs. We do realize that is in the Ouachita Mountains, but culturally and geographically, it is certainly close enough to be taken into consideration. And a tradition of burying the entrails of a black hen under the hearth on Old Christmas, said to protect the house against destruction by lightning or fire. And this was not an uncommon practice, and certainly there's a wide variety of sources that particular conjure tradition could come from.
Very true. And he notes that his research showed that occurred in some sections of Arkansas. So not just isolated to the Hot Springs area. It would make sense. And to be frank, I've heard my grandmother talk about people putting chicken guts under the hearth. She didn't, but she talked about that happening when she was young.
And it is of note. Certainly, practices of this nature can be traced to hoodoo conjure, which is traces back to West Africa. But this particular note by Vance Randolph, it's poor whites who are doing it.
Right. Exactly. It were the same people whose ancestors had come over from Britain and through the Mid-Atlantic to Appalachia and the Ozarks. So all of these things, and it was traditional that they do this on Old Christmas,
which is Epiphany, or January 6th.
Exactly. And as a protection ward, basically. And it's funny now, people talk about you're supposed to eat black-eyed peas on New Year's for good luck. Well, this was basically the same kind of thing, but just a little more noir in the way you did it. So there are a lot of aspects to this time of year that have noir quality that people don't think about. We're going to talk about a lot more of this in our long format video. So look for that coming up before too long on the channel. In between, don't forget to check out upcoming events and merchandise at darkozarts.com and paranormalsciencelab.com. Thank you again to Always Buying Books, Beard Engine Brewing Company, and Stay the Ozarks for helping to bring the Dark Ozarks to everyone.
On the next episode, we are going to be discussing the dark side of Springfield, Missouri, live at the Fox. Catch the Dark Ozarks podcast on Branson Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or about any other podcast platform. Thank you, everyone. And remember, there are no easy answers in the Dark Ozarks.